You know, when you hear the names Rahu and Ketu, your mind probably jumps to a celestial demon, right? A severed head forever chasing the sun and moon. It's a fantastic, powerful myth. But what if I told you that story was actually a kind of placeholder, a clever cover for one of the most brilliant astronomical discoveries of the ancient world? Well, today we're going to peel back the layers of that myth to find the incredible math hidden inside. For most of human history, an eclipse was just plain terrifying. I mean, imagine it. The sun, your source of light and life, just starts vanishing in the middle of the day. Without a scientific reason, cultures all over the world, from China to India, came up with a similar idea. Some kind of cosmic monster, a giant dragon, was literally eating the sun. As you can see here, it was a moment of absolute universal fear. So, in India, this cosmic monster got a name and a pretty dramatic backstory. The legend says Rahu was a demon who sneakily drank the nectar of immortality. But just before he could swallow it, the god Vishnu whipped out his discus and sliced off Rahu's head. The head, now immortal and filled with rage, was doomed to chase the sun and moon forever. And every now and then, he'd catch one, causing an eclipse. It's an amazing story, but it's not the whole story. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the demon's story, then look at how ancient astronomers started to challenge it. After that, we'll uncover the cosmic intersection that reveals the truth. And finally, we'll crack the eclipse code they discovered. Okay, let's get into that challenge. While the story of the demon was super popular, a few brilliant thinkers were looking up at the sky and realizing, you know what, this myth doesn't quite line up with what we're seeing. They knew there had to be a better, more logical answer. Now, this wasn't some sudden aha moment. It was this long, amazing tradition of scientific thinking. You can see on this timeline, they were talking about calculating eclipses as far back as 2000 BC. But the real breakthroughs, the game changers, came much later. Aryabhata, born in 476 AD, was the first to say, hey, maybe Rahu and Ketu aren't demons, maybe they're astronomical nodes. Then guys like Varahamihira and Brahmagupta came along and built the rock-solid math to prove it. And this, right here, is the critical shift in thinking. For these scientists, a story just wasn't good enough anymore, especially for something that happened over and over again. They were observers. They measured the heavens, they tracked the planets, and they needed a theory that actually fit the data. And this is where Varahamihira just drops the mic. He posed this devastatingly simple question. He's basically asking, look, if Rahu is just some angry, random demon flying around, how can we possibly predict his movements with math? How do I know exactly when and where he's going to show up? You can't. A random demon doesn't follow a schedule. The myth had absolutely no answer for that. So let's put these two ideas side by side. On the left, you have the myth. It's random, it's vengeful, it's chaotic. On the right, you have the science. It's an elegant physical explanation. A lunar eclipse, that's just the moon passing through Earth's shadow. A solar eclipse, that's just the moon getting in the way of the sun. Suddenly, it's a universe of geometry, not monsters. So, if Rahu and Ketu aren't demons, then what in the world are they? This next part is the core revelation, the true genius of these ancient astronomers. They figured out the hidden geometry of the sky. The whole thing starts with this one fundamental insight. From here on Earth, it looks like the sun and the moon travel on different paths across the sky. It seems like a small detail, but it changes everything. Right, so the moon's path is tilted just a little bit, about 5 degrees, compared to the sun's path. So imagine two giant hula hoops in the sky. Because one is tilted, they're only going to cross each other at two exact opposite points. And those 2 points of intersection? Yep, that's Rahu and Ketu. This is the big reveal. They aren't physical things, not planets, not demons. They are invisible, purely mathematical points in space where the path of the moon and the path of the sun cross. Think of them as invisible markers in the sky. Rahu, which they called the ascending node, is the point where the moon's path crosses upwards, heading north. And Ketu, the descending node, is where it crosses back down, heading south. They weren't monsters to be afraid of. They are coordinates you could actually calculate. So just identifying these nodes was a massive step. But the real power, the real magic, came from figuring out how to use them. This discovery didn't just explain eclipses that had already happened. It gave them the key to predict the future. And that leads to a really good question, one you might have even thought of yourself. We get a new moon and a full moon every single month, so why don't we get a solar and a lunar eclipse every single month? And the answer comes right back to that 5-degree tilt. Most of the time, the alignment just isn't quite perfect. At the full moon, the moon usually sails just above or just below the Earth's shadow. It's a near miss. And at the new moon, its shadow misses the Earth completely. So for an eclipse to actually happen, a few things have to line up perfectly. First, you need the right phase of the moon. Second, and this is the crucial part, the moon has to be right at or super close to one of those intersection points, either Rahu or Ketu. When both of those conditions are met, bam, you get the third condition, a perfect straight line alignment of the sun, earth, and moon. That is the eclipse code. And this just shows you how deep this science really went. This wasn't just some vague idea, it became a predictive engine. Using that eclipse code, astronomers like Brahmagupta developed these incredibly complex formulas. You don't need to be a mathematician to see the point. They turned cosmic geometry into precise, predictable calculations. And the accuracy was just stunning. They weren't just saying, hey, an eclipse might happen next month. No. They could calculate the exact start and end times. They could figure out the magnitude, how much of the sun or moon would be covered. They even identified 10 different types of eclipses and could predict the exact path a solar eclipse would trace across the face of the Earth. This was an incredibly precise science. So, in the end, Rahu and Ketu went through this amazing transformation. They went from being feared demons, symbols of random, terrifying chaos, to being the very keys that unlocked a predictable, mathematical, and frankly, beautiful universe. It is such a cool story of how observation and pure reason can turn superstition into science. And it leaves us with this really compelling question, doesn't it? What other incredible scientific marvels might be hiding right now, just waiting to be decoded, inside the world's other ancient myths?